Let's see what I thought of Your Lie in April in July. Back in April of this year, I produced a review of Your Lie in April in concert. This is an adaptation of an anime and a manga, and just like Death Note before it, had been adapted to the stage by Frank Wildhorn. While a lot of us, including myself, thought that we would see Death Note return before Your Lie in April did, we were pleasantly surprised to see that Your Lie in April would get a West End run, a full production at the Harold Pinter Theatre, a theatre that actually very rarely takes musicals. For the past few years at least, it's been very much a playhouse, mainly because of its small stage. But if you remember my review of Your Lie in April before, that actually pleased me a little bit because I called for a production of this musical to be done very intimately. So, having watched the concert earlier this year and now having seen the West End version, did I get everything I asked for? Have they tightened the show? Have they made it better? And has it made the leap from concert to full production well? Let's find out. But if you haven't seen my face before, hi, I'm Ellie. I talk about theatre. I am the most chaotic theatre person on the internet. I do reviews, I do discussions, I do versus brackets and tier lists. And if any of that's interesting to you, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It really helps me, it helps out the channel. But let's talk about Your Lie in April. Again. First of all, I want to give this musical a lot of credit because it hasn't been that long since this concert. From the concert to opening night, which was the 5th of July, it's been about 2-3 months. When you think about it, that's not a lot of time to make any real drastic changes to a musical. These things take a lot of time, but it's very clear that they've taken the short amount of time they've taken those 3 months, and they've made a lot of really, really good changes. A lot of changes that even reflect some of the things that I discussed previously, things that I wanted to see out of this musical in a full-scale production. So what is Your Lie in April? Your Lie in April is obviously, as I mentioned, based on the manga and the anime of the same name. All about Kosei, a musician who, after his mum's tragic passing, can no longer hear music. But when he meets transfer student Kaori, she tries her best to help him find the music once again. Just like I said in the concert, I feel like this is the heart of Your Lie in April, and it is the strongest material on stage. They've done a good job at taking the story and making it shorter, and I feel like this version has done a lot of things to make it feel a lot clearer that it is mainly about this story, this love story unfolding. I think it shortens really well. It feels like they've focused very clearly and very well on the most important material here. And these reworks have yet again improved the pace of this show immensely. And its heart. Your Lie in April is a sad story, it's a tragic story, an intimate story about two people, and that is contrasted at how big and soaring and wide and expansive this music is. And I feel like this production has managed to hone into that even more since the concert. There's obviously a lot that they have to cut just naturally because of the fact that this is a 2-hour musical based on an anime that is a lot longer than that. But as someone who is an outsider to that initial story, it feels like they have taken the right things here to make this story have the impact that it needs to have on stage. I think it's a very natural transition to being a musical as well, just as I said about the concert. This is a story all about music. It makes a lot of sense for it to be a musical. On the whole, this is not that much different from the concert, right? There's been a couple of pacing adjustments and a couple of things cut that have improved that, but still I feel like it's just as successful as that concert was. What they have cut a lot of and made some great decisions in is the music, which I'll speak about in more detail now. One of the numbers that I recommended they cut in my last review was the song The Beautiful Game. This was a song for one of the friends in the show, Watari, who is playing a football game and loses. It's a nice moment, and I think it gave you a nice glimpse into his character, showing a very different side of him than the typical comic relief that we got to see. But because of the shortening of this story, this felt like something that the anime had the time to focus on, where the musical couldn't, and it felt like that time that it spent on that would probably be better used focusing more on the love story. Or even the story in the background, the unrequited love story that we get. It seems like the creators were in agreement with me here, and they have cut this song, meaning that Act 1's pace goes a lot quicker, and additionally, it feels a lot more focused on these events, on these concerts, on the love story between Kosei and Kaori building up slowly. This is a great change for this specific adaptation. And while I think it did show you a lot more of his vulnerability, if you can't flesh it out beyond one single number, it is better just to lose that material. And in adaptations, sometimes you have to make tough calls like that. On the whole, I like a lot of the music here. I feel like it is a little bit repetitive in places, especially on this viewing. I felt like, and I really noticed a lot of the similar scores and themes. It's a musical that heavily focuses on reprises. And I'm glad this production has at least addressed this a little bit by cutting one of the reprises of one note, which is another cut that is very welcome. But despite this, I still think there are a lot of highlights within this score. If I Can't Hear the Music is a very impactful opening number. A great introduction to Kosei, his struggles, the tough relationship with his mother. What feels like it would have been an entire episode of an anime feels like it has been condensed very well to just what we need to know. But within that, still managing to carry a lot of the impact and the tragedy and the emotion behind this event for Kosei, and making us understand exactly as an audience why he is struggling with music. Perfect is a wonderful song. I love the melody of this song. It's a song that gets reprised a lot as well, but I feel like it's one of those reprises I actually very much welcome. Coming as Kaori is doing her performance, showing what perfection means to her, how that contrasts with Kosei's mother's opinions on perfection, and opening up the doors to a very different style of music and its purpose than what Kosei has been led to believe it is. One Note is a nice number. It's not one of my favourites, and especially as it gets reprised more and more, it does slightly lose its impact. But what it does carry is how much this means and how much this competition means to everyone around Kosei and Kaori. The different attitudes between these characters, which honestly leads to a lot of great comic relief later down the line in the show. Where's My Superhero is one of my favourite ballads in this show, wonderfully performed by Rachel Claire Chan. So full of emotion with this unrequited love story. This number does a great job at giving this storyline enough time and enough weight for it to feel really impactful in the show. A song that I've softened on a lot and I actually really like, especially this time round, is Speed of Sound. Is it a bit inconsequential in the grand scheme of things? Yes. But it's a really sweet moment. It's really nice. It's actually a really catchy song. And I think especially in an overall score that is quite dark, is, quite brutal in places, I feel like it's a nice contrast to that. And one of the better examples of lighter material in this show. Catch a Shooting Star is a lovely moment between Kosei and Kaori, really building their relationship. And I think one of the strongest moments in this show is their finale number, I Can Hear You. Obviously, it's very easy to see the contrast between the title of this number and the title of the opening number, If I Can't Hear the Music. It's a little bit on the nose, but it works its purpose. This is the stuff in the musical that obviously, with the time frame, is the harder things to change. I think they've made clever cuts here and there. It still feels like we have a few too many songs in this show. It feels very song heavy, especially when these songs are very, very heavy on reprises. But again, like I said for the concert, I would have liked to see a little bit more classical music in this score. The best moment in the show, still, hands down, is Kosei's solo, where it is him alone on stage for about 3 minutes, playing the piano. That is the most impactful moment in the show. There's no singing, it is just music, and that music carries so much weight, so much power. It tells you so much about his journey and how much things have changed for him since Carrie has come into his life. While this bit is incredible, I do think it's a shame that it is the instrumental in a musical that carries the most weight when I'm looking at an entire score. Then we can talk about set, design, and staging. So, let's reflect first on the concert staging versus what we've got now. Actually, it's very similar. This wasn't unexpected. When we saw Bonnie and Clyde go from concert to fully staged, there was a lot of similarities between Nick Winston's directing there and in the full version. This, I feel like, is even closer than that initially was, but there are some great changes here. One thing that hasn't changed since the concert, and something that I will criticize, and I did criticize there, is the decision to have Kosei play live, but not have Carrie play live. Now, this is something that I said in the concert I didn't really like, but I forgave there because of the reason of that was a concert. I understand the fact that you've got less time to rehearse, you've got less time to find an actress who can play violin, and, you know, at the end of the day, that was a nice choice to show off the band in a concert, which, when you're doing a concert version of something, that makes sense. Here, while I think they have staged it better, I still don't love it. They've clearly taken a little bit more time to think about this idea and flesh it out a bit more. It feels like it's a little bit more purposeful now. We have a violin double who comes out in these moments, and Carrie's actress stays very still. And when she does actually move alongside the violinist, the movements match up a lot better than they did in the concert. Still though, I feel like you lose a little bit of the impact that the music has in this show when you separate these two. I think it's a weird decision to have one of the leads play live and the other doesn't. And I feel like it robs us of showing Carrie's talent a little bit. Because while we get the idea, while it's very clear that these are the same people, and obviously having someone who is a violinist, it still separates the two. And while you can understand that they are the same person in this show, it's not as impactful as Kosei. For a musical that is all about the power of music, I feel like it is a baffling choice not to have her play live. I feel like if she was the one who was playing live, songs like Perfect and her performances with Kosei would have such a stronger impact. So while I forgave it in the concert, this is something that really held me back here. Another thing that I said I would like to see from concert to full show was a more intimate style. And I feel like there's one thing they do that gets this really well, and there's one thing that struggles with that. The thing that helps them is the fact that they have chosen a theatre with a very small stage, and this set is quite squashed. This works really well. I feel like for our leads and for the smaller moments in the show, this stage is the perfect size for them, really allowing us to focus in on the music and the story and the connection between the characters here. This is the right size stage for them, with the levels allowing them to build and have more dynamic staging as well. What doesn't help them, however, is the fact that they have kept their ensemble. Now, it has shrunk a little bit, but it still doesn't feel like it's shrunk enough. Now, while I recognise the fact that having this ensemble is an important thing, especially for representation, because this is the first West End musical to have a fully Southeast Asian cast, and having a slightly bigger ensemble allows for more Southeast Asian people to be on stage. Fundamentally, that is a great thing. And it's a great feat, and it's a surprising feat that has only happened now. But this is a show that doesn't feel like it's calling out for an ensemble. There's only a few numbers throughout the show that actually feature the ensemble, and most of these feel like they could cut them back so much more. If I was staging this show, I would have an ensemble of about 4 people. With that number including Emmy and Takeshi. Because ultimately, this is a musical about our main four. It is about that group of people, and there's not many moments in the show where we really see beyond that main dynamic. Having a smaller ensemble not only puts the focus more onto those four, but it also would mean that in a lot of these bigger numbers, they don't feel as squashed. There were a lot of moments, especially in these larger group numbers, where you could tell they were really struggling to fit everyone on stage. For example, during Speed of Sound, they had one of the ensemble members stood behind the piano. So if you're in the stalls, good luck seeing that one ensemble member. To make this story really work, for an ensemble basis, all you really need are the two ensemble people who are always mad, Emmy and Takeshi, the girl who says, "I knew it," and the guy who eventually wins the competition. These four could very easily multi-role every single other role in this show. I feel like that would be a nicer balance for ensemble, making this feel a little bit more intimate, and would counterbalance the fact that they have a much smaller stage now than they did at the Theatre Royal Drury Lane. Honestly, on any bigger of a stage, I feel like this ensemble would probably be about the right size, but here they do feel a little bit squashed, and overall, they are a little bit underused for the show. But coming back a little bit to the set, I feel like they've done a lot of great changes to make this feel a little bit more in line with the anime. One of my biggest criticisms of the staging at the Theatre Royal Drury Lane was because they were doing this on the set of Frozen, it felt very dark. Except one screen and the pop of pink from the cherry blossom tree that they had, it didn't feel very colourful, but when you look at images from the anime, there is such a bright pop of colours in that, and it's so bright and has such a distinct, colourful style that contrasts so well to the sadder, darker elements of that story. Which links back into the themes of it as well, and the discussions of the song Love Sorrow, the good within the bad, the love within the sadness. Here they've done a better job at giving it that colour. They have a similar setup of levels as they did at the Theatre Royal Drury Lane, but these have been painted a bubblegum colour, a mixture of pink and blue, giving it a nice bright pop. And around the stage, they've taken the idea and the main theme of that sliver of screen and have made the entire stage surrounded by it, bringing us into so many different gorgeous landscapes very easily and fluidly. I really like what they've done with the set to level it up since that concert. It feels like it's a little bit more in line now with what was presented by the anime. There's also some other great touches as well. I love the idea of having the piano on the revolve. There was a lot of moments in the show where they were playing at the piano and it felt like we couldn't really properly see them. Putting that on a revolve now makes that so much more fluid, allows for more interesting staging, and gives us so many different angles on this one piano. So on the whole, I think this set is a nice level up from what I wanted to see. It's got the right scale for me, it's got the right size for me, but it doesn't really feel like it's got the right size for the size of cast that they want. Finally, let's talk about this cast. When I talked about the concert before, I said that this cast were incredible, and essentially almost everyone I'm speaking about are the same cast members from that concert, who feel like they have really refined their performances from this concert even more. Jung-Zi Young plays Kosei. He is probably my favorite performer in this show. He carries all of that emotion and weight of this story so incredibly well. He is a phenomenal performer, showing the weight of this tragedy on his character and delivering a really heartfelt and honest portrayal. As I said, my favorite moment in this show is his piano solo, which is incredibly performed by Young. Mia Kobayashi plays Kaori, one of the new additions to this cast, and someone who is making her professional debut, and she does a great job. And I love the way that she teases the other characters. There's such a charm and a loveliness to her portrayal, and she has an absolutely phenomenal voice. Rachel Claire Chan plays Tsubake, a character who has an unrequited love story for Kosei. She carries the emotion of this story and how this is personally affecting her character so well through her portrayal. making Where's My Superhero one of the most impactful ballads in this show, thanks to her performance. Dean John Wilson as Wattery has a more comic relief style of performance than he did in the concert. He's refined that, and he has managed to deliver it so perfectly distilled. Selling all of the little character moments. I love the reactions that he has to certain moments. One of the best moments in the show is when he's flirting with Cowrie and then turns around and sees her father standing right there. Wilson's reaction to that in the moment completely sells the joke. Lucy Park plays Kosei's mother, another new addition to this cast. Kosei's mother is a very stern and cold character, but Park manages to deliver both sides to her, showing that underneath that exterior is a real love for her son. And a huge shout out to our young performer playing young Kosei, Theo O. A very mature performance from such a young actor. And just like the older version, some amazing moments playing that piano. I really want to give Your Lie in April a lot of credit, because it feels like even in the short amount of time between that initial concert to now, they have done a lot of great work on this show. It's honed in on that emotion and has managed to find what in the anime works best for this story and retelling that story in a shorter version on stage. I think while there's a few things that I struggled with and a few things that I feel like are going against what it is trying to achieve, I feel like on the whole it does manage to deliver a very intimate story. So while a few personal hang-ups stop it from being perfect, I feel like I got a lot of what I wanted out of a full production of Your Lie in April. But what do you think? Have you seen the concert of Your Lie in April? Have you seen the West End transfer? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. If you did enjoy this video, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It really helps me, it helps out the channel. Here's some links to some other videos on the screen right now and a link to my Instagram if you would like to drop me a follow over there. I also have other links to a merch store, other socials, channel memberships in the description down below if you are interested. But that is it for me today, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.